So I finally got around to finishing Black Myth Wukong, and I will say I'm pretty pleased that I managed to finish another Souls-like this year without breaking half my fingers. And my goodness, this game took up a lot of my newsfeed even before I started the 60-hour play session. How could it not be though? Based off those numbers, it's the most successful single-player game in Steam history. So good was this game, it brought back the PS5 shortage over in China. And all the while, it was getting some very confusing reviews from professional critics, lacking in inclusivity and diversity. That confuses me, Screamway, because like halfway through the game, a whole chapter revolves around a giant village that's filled with spider geishas. And that was after a boss fight in which a woman turns into a dragon. And that was after I had a boss fight with Tony the Tiger after he stole the River of Blood katana from Elden Ring, as well as gotten coked out of his mind on Charlie Sheen's blood. Oh, and did I forget this is a game in which you play as a monkey? But I get ahead of myself. In case you haven't heard by now, Black Myth Wukong is a new Souls-like from Chinese studio Game Science, and it's based off the 16th century novel known as Journey to the West. A story themed around the Monkey King known as Sun Wukong, who basically, from what I can understand, Kratos is his way through Chinese mythology. So with that being said, the game story might lose you a bit if you aren't familiar with Journey to the West. And in case you're wondering like I was, no, watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid doesn't help you in this regard. Sadly, there's no point in this game in which you have a boss fight with an alien femboy. But still, it wasn't a deal breaker, and the game has probably one of the best first impressions I had in a game all year, as you play as a full-powered Monkey King walking up to a big massive army filled with giants and essentially going, "Come at me, bro," before battling the leader of the army and getting schooled so much he dies and turns into a big giant boulder. Clumsy git. Which leaves you to play a character who's thought to be the reincarnation of Sun Wukong to regather the relics in order to take up the mantle for himself. And you'll do that by crediting your wealth through Chinese mythology and so on and so forth. So let's do the usual thing when it comes to Souls-likes on the market, and let's see what they replaced everything with. Instead of bonfires, we have shrines. Instead of Estus flasks, we have gourds that are filled with healing wine. And instead of NPC summons, we have transformation abilities that will allow you to turn into certain enemies for a short period of time. Actually, that's a pretty significant change there, Black Myth Wukong. Well done. The spells are probably the highlight when it comes to the combat because there's a lot of variety in which you can use them with, and it also can break the game in some cases. You have an effect that allows you to freeze opponents, you have an effect that allows you to summon a ring of fire, you have an effect that allows you to duplicate yourself, you have an effect that allows you to turn yourself into stone to evade an attack. There's another spell in the late game that I absolutely love because it boils down to fuck all using the spell shit and just give me a decent power bonus. As fun as using the spells were, they weren't exactly reliable 100% of the time, especially in the late game boss fights, but besides that fact, you're a monkey warrior, you fool, level up that stuff and your favorite fighting stance and wail on them with that magic stick like they owe you bananas. Gameplay wise, it feels kind of similar to Sekiro, because in that game you also level up skill trees, but unlike in Sekiro, if you die, you don't actually lose any of your XP, which is actually a good thing. But a key difference being, in Sekiro it was all about the perfect parry, but in Wukong it's all about the perfect dodge. Parrying and shielding are out, but if you get good at perfect dodges, you'll actually build up your special attack meter a lot faster, allowing you to do cool shit like the flat pole sitter stance that allows you to just avoid ground damage, but also swack an opponent from 50 yards away. So the combat is solid, and the boss fights all felt plentiful and varied, and also always pretty challenging, but never felt unfair. I also love how every single chapter closes out with an absolutely gorgeous animation, music video, and speaking of music, that one headless monk with amazing guitar skills, a pretty decent highlight. But with all that being said, Wukong, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I do have to dock points for your exploration. You have absolutely gorgeous scenery and it makes for a very beautiful looking video game. But nothing kills my exploration stiffy like seeing invisible walls in places where you really shouldn't have invisible walls. Also, Game Science, I know you think you don't have to use a map because Dark Souls doesn't originally have a map, but you could use a map sometimes. Some parts are just not that straightforward and it'd be nice to know where I'm going with it. Sorry, what was that? In the final chapter, you get to fly around on a Nimbus. Okay, fuck it, Game Science, you win, we'll call it even.